The third loop statement is called for statement or for loop. The syntax starts with the keyword for and followed by these three expressions that are enclosed in parentheses, and the three expressions are separated by a comma. Expression 1 here, the first one, we call that initialization, and it could be 0 or more statements separated by a comma. Expression 2 is 0 or 1 condition or conditional expression. So expression 2 is a condition, and expression 3 is called an update, and it could be 0 or more statements separated by comma. So again, expression 1 could be 0 or more statements or expressions separated by comma. And expression 3, this is also 0 or more statements separated by a comma. So take note, it could be 0, so this may be empty, and also expression 1 and also expression 2. The condition, which is expression 2, could be 0 or meaning empty, no condition, or 1 condition. And take note, if we are going to omit expression 2, if it is omitted, meaning it has no condition, this is empty, the condition is always true. And so it would result to an infinite loop, or a loop that never stops because the condition is always true. So what is the execution flow of the for loop? First, it executes this part, the initialization. So again, this expression 1 here is called initialization. This is where we initialize the variables that we need inside the for loop. And so if there are several initializations, you separate them using a comma, just like when you say for x set to 1, comma, sum set to 0, and then semicolon. This part here is your expression 1, which we call as the initialization. And this is the semicolon, this part here. And then what follows is a condition, say for example, while x is less than or equal to 10. That is when we are going to get the sum of integer values from 1 up to 10. Then we have another semicolon here, which is this one here. And this part here is again what we call as the update. This will update the variables that we need in the for loop in preparation for the next iteration. So for example, our update would be x plus plus. Okay? So this is our expression 1. This is the expression 2, the condition. Expression 1 again is initialization. Expression 2 is the condition to be evaluated. If that is true, then the for loop body is executed. And after we have executed the for loop body, we execute the expression 3, which is to update the value of x. So from 1, x becomes, when this is executed, x becomes 2. So every iteration, we move to the next value of x. This is our update of the variables in preparation for the next iteration of the for loop. In the execution flow in here, we first execute expression 1, the initialization, and then we check the condition or evaluate the condition, this expression 2 here. If it is true, we execute the loop body. So all the statements in here from the first statement up to the last statement will be executed. Otherwise, meaning when the condition is false, the for loop terminates. So just like the while loop and the do while loop, the for loop terminates when the condition becomes false. And take note that every time the loop body is executed, after that you execute expression 3. And then you go back to letter B, which is to check the condition. So reviewing the flow of execution for loop, again, this is executed first, the initialization. All of the statements in here, if it has several statements, will be executed from left to right. And after that, check the condition. If it is true, then all the statements in the loop body from the first up to the last will be executed. After the last, execution jumps to execute expression 3, the update. If this has several statements or expressions separated by comma, they will be executed from left to right. After that, it goes back to execute expression 2, the condition evaluated. The condition is evaluated again. And if it is true, then execute the loop body again, which is now the second iteration. And then after the loop body is executed, all the statements from the first up to the last, execute expression 3, the update, all the statements in here from left to right. After that, go back again to the condition, check it. Every time it is true, then execute the loop body and execute the update and go back to the condition. If it is true, execute the loop body, execute the updates, and go back to the condition. So take note that the initialization, which is expression 1, is executed only once, while the loop is in this part, condition. If it is true, execute the loop body and then execute the update, execute the condition, check the condition. If it is true, execute the loop body again. So the cycle or the loop is in here. Okay, so this is not executed all the time. This is executed only, the initialization, only once. So that is for the flow. Now take note that basing on the execution flow of the for loop, it is equivalent to the execution of this while loop, right? Recall, in the for loop, we execute first expression 1, all the statements in there. So it is equivalent to executing expression 1 before the while loop. And after that, check the condition. So the condition is here in the while loop, the same flow. And when this is true, execute the while loop body, which is consisting of these statements here, statement 1 up to the last. Okay, so 1 up to last, that's the for loop body, all the statements in here. And then after that, recall that we are going to execute expression 3. So you can put expression 3 here as the last statement or statements inside the while loop. And then after that, it goes back to the condition. So after here, it goes back to the condition. So this for loop here has the same execution flow as this equivalent while loop here. So we have here a sample program that makes use of a for loop to do the same thing like what we did here in the while loop. Okay, so what we did here earlier is that we display all the value of x from 1 up to 10. And then when the while loop terminates, we display program ends. So the equivalent for loop for that program is this one. The expression 1 for loop, which is this, the initialization, is in here. And for the condition of the for loop, for the while loop, it is found here. And when this is true, this is executed, and after that, execute this. So it's equivalent to executing this, and this one being the expression 3 of the for loop. And then when the loop ends, we simply display that. So just like here, when the for loop ends, we display that. So for x from 1 up to 10, for every value of x, we display it on the screen, and then we increment x in preparation for the next iteration until x becomes 10. When x becomes 11, this would become false already, and it jumps out, or the for loop terminates and it jumps out to execute this part. Okay, let's try to execute this. Okay, so that's the execution. Say we're going to compute the sum of all the values. So we would just say here sum gets sum plus x, and then we need to initialize sum to 0. So since that is initialization, we can put that one here. Sum is set initially to 0. So now our expression 1 has two initializations, initializing x to 1 and initializing sum to 0. So expression 1 has two initializations, condition, or expression 2 has one condition, and the update is only 1. So let's try to run this. We have not declared sum, so we need to declare it here. So let's put it there. Save, and then compile, run. Oh, we did not output the sum, so we say the sum of 1 to 10 is %d. Then we output here, comma, sum. Save and run. So we have there, the sum of 1 to 10 is 55, just like the output we have for the while loop earlier. Now we have here two statements. First, the break statement. This will cause the innermost enclosing loop or switch to be terminated immediately. And recall that the first time we use break is for the switch statement, right? In the switch statement, we put a break statement at the end of each case value inside the switch body, right? And the purpose for that is to break the switch statement because the value of the ordinal type is only one at a time. So if it's already found to be, say for example, case 1, then we exit the switch statement automatically, immediately, so that we save time by no longer checking for the rest of the cases. When this is used for loops, say for for loop, this would cause the innermost enclosing loop to terminate. So say for example, normally if you look at this for loop, it would iterate for 10 times, right? That is when x is equal to 1 up to x equal to 10. So there will be 10 iterations for this for loop, or this for loop iterates 10 times. But if we're going to say put in here a statement, an if statement, we say if x is equal to 5. Now recall the equality operator is double equal symbol. So if x is equal to 5, then we want to break the for loop. So what do you think will happen? When x is equal to 1, this is true, and so this is false, and therefore this is not executed, right? And so this is executed, x is displayed 1, and then 1 is added to sum, and then x is incremented, x becomes 2. So when x is equal to 1, sum is equal to 0 plus 1 is 1. When x is equal to 2 on the second iteration, the condition is true, and so the if x is equal to 5 is false. Display the value of x and add x, which is 2, to sum. On the third iteration, that is when x is equal to 3, x is displayed, and then we add it to sum. When x is equal to 4, the condition is still true, and the if statement condition is false, and so we do not break the for loop. Instead, we continue to display x, which is 4, on the screen and add it to sum. When x becomes 5, the condition is true for the for loop, and so we get inside the for loop body again, and this time the if statement condition x equals 5 is true, right? Because your x now is 5. And so the break statement is executed. So what will happen? When this becomes true now, the break statement is executed, and therefore these two statements are skipped. they are no longer executed, because when that is executed, execution jumps out of the for loop immediately, and therefore skipping or ignoring these two lines, and that means they are no longer executed. So is 5 displayed on the screen? It is no longer displayed because, again, when that is true, this is executed, execution jumps out of the for loop immediately. Therefore, this is no longer executed. Therefore, 5 is not displayed on the screen. And also, 5 is not added to sum anymore. So what will be the value of sum in this case? Sum will just be from 1 to 4, which is equal to what? This is 7, 8, 9, 10. The sum value is just 10. Okay? X is not added into sum. When x is equal to 5, the for loop terminates immediately. Therefore, these are no longer executed on the fifth iteration. Now also, the iteration when x is equal to 6 up to 10, they are no longer executed too. So all in all, instead of having 10 iterations supposed to be, because of this if statement, and that is to break the for loop when x is 5, there are only 5 iterations, and the fifth iteration is not completed because these two are not executed anymore. Okay, let's try to run this. Execute. Okay, notice that the values displayed are only 1 to 4, and the value of x, which is equal to 5, is no longer displayed because this is already skipped, and also this one. So 5 is not included or added into sum. So the value of sum is only 10. Now we should change this one, right? It should not be 10. That is a logical error. So how do we change this? We will just say up to percent. We could change this to percent %d, and then we need to add something like x here. So the last value of x is 5, right? So we should put here a -1 because it is only up to from 1 to 4, right? So it should be x -1, because if it is just x, it would say the sum of 1 to 5 is 10, which is also erroneous because we added only from 1 to 4, not 1 to 5. Okay, so let's try this one. Run this. Okay, now it's correct. X is from 1 to 4, and when x is 5, the for loop terminates, and 5 is no longer added to sum, so this is only 10. Okay, that's right, 4. The last value of x is 4. So again, the break statement is to cause immediate termination of an enclosing for loop or inside a switch. Now, how about if we change this to continue? Instead of break, we use this other statement, continue. So what do you think will happen now if this is continue? Continue will cause the next iteration of the enclosing loop to begin. So the break will terminate the loop, while the continue will simply cause the next, it will jump, execution jumps immediately to the next iteration of the loop. Okay? So continue is not applicable for switch, only the break. Okay, break is applicable to or can be used inside switch statement and the loops, while continue is used only for loops and it's not used for switch. So if this is replaced from break to continue, what do you think will happen? When x is equal to 1, this condition here is true. And so we get inside the for loop, x equals 5 is not true, so it is false. So continue is not executed. So what will happen is x is displayed and it will be added to sum. When x is 2, it will be displayed and it will be added to sum. When x is 3, it will be displayed and it will be added to sum. When x is 4, it will be displayed and it will be added to sum. When x is 5, what will happen now? This is true. It goes into the for loop. And then this is now true, the if statement condition. So continue is executed. What will happen? It will jump to the update. Okay? So when this is true on the 5th iteration, continue is executed and therefore it will jump immediately to the next iteration, to the update expression. These two are skipped or ignored. They are no longer executed on the 5th iteration. But the for loop does not stop, okay? Just like in the break statement. It continues to the next iteration. It jumps to the next iteration. That is increment x. So from 5, it becomes 6. And these two are skipped, okay? Because it will cause the next iteration to begin. And so if it causes the next iteration to begin, it jumps immediately to the update. Therefore, skipping these two lines. So these two lines on the 5th iteration will no longer be executed, and therefore x equals 5 is not displayed and it's not added into sum. So 5 is not displayed and it's not added to sum. And when x is 6, this is false, and therefore this is not executed. From x equals to 6 up to the last value of x, which is 10, this is false, and therefore this is no longer executed, and therefore these two are executed. Equals to 6 up to x equals to 10. So when x is 6, it is displayed and it is added into the sum. And then when x is 7, it is displayed and added to sum. When x is 8, it is displayed and added to sum. When x is 9, it is displayed and added to sum. When x is 10, it is displayed and added to sum. When x is 11, the for loop condition is false, and therefore this is no longer executed. The for loop terminates and it executes this one. We will just remove this one. The sum is, we'll just say the sum is, okay, the sum is sum. Okay, so let's save that. And what should be the output? What is the sum from 1 to 10 except 5? Recall that earlier we got the sum of x from 1 to 10, and that is 55, right? If we omit 5, this would be 50. So 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 6 plus 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so 5 is not included. That is simply 50. So when we run this, it should be 50, the sum. That's right. So take note, every iteration we display the value of x except when x is equal to 5. We skip that one. And the sum is only 50. Sum x equals 5 is not displayed and it is not added into sum, just like what we traced here.